So Seth, where are we going?
PAX.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Classic Gaming Brothers. I'm Zach.
And I'm Seth.
We are the Classic Gaming Brothers.
That's right. We are the Classic Gaming Brothers.
Hey, we're back from PAX.
Thank goodness. Whew, that was a long trip. There was trains, planes, and automobiles.
That's true. No John Candy, though, sadly enough.
No, unfortunately, no John Candy. So we're back from PAX. This is our Post-PAX Pod, but before we get into our past PAX experience, ooh, do you like that alliteration?
I did like it.
There's a lot of P's when you talk about PAX. Anyway, Zach, what have you recently been playing?
Seth, recently I've been playing Helldivers 2. Released in 2024, Helldivers 2 is a third-person cooperative shooter by Arrowhead Game Studios. The game is a sequel to the first Helldivers, which was a top-down shooter, not a third-person shooter. Helldivers 2 is awesome. You play as a titular Helldiver, who are an elite shock trooper who serves managed democracy for the glory of Super Earth. You have to fight Terminids, which are a type of bug, and cyborgs, which, as the name implies, are cyborgs. The Terminids and the cyborgs have occupied various regions of the galaxy, so this requires you to fly to these planets and assert your democracy on those planets using any means necessary. So this includes shutting down pirate radio stations, launching ICBMs, obtaining research, activating bug-killing gas, or other fun jobs. The game is incredibly satirical in the sense that it's kind of tongue-in-cheek the whole time you're playing it, while it does have kind of a serious tone. It takes a lot of its aesthetic and style from Starship Troopers, if anyone's familiar with that movie or the book. It's also a game that is very fun to play with friends because there is constant friendly fire, in that the devs recently just actually put out a statement saying they will never disable friendly fire because the way they programmed the game, they would require disabling the enemies taking damage for them to disable friendly fire. Another fun fact about the friendly fire is that when they were developing the game, they designed the guns that you use off of real guns, and the damage that the guns do is based on actual research they did of damage on various targets. And that comes to play if you fire a certain type of gun and your friend gets in the way, they might die faster if they're a certain distance. Another thing that I really like, especially with the friendly fire, is you can call down turrets, and turrets do not discriminate. So a turret will aim at a bug or a cyborg, but if your friends are in the way, it's going to fire because it's aiming at the bug or the cyborg, and your friends are just in the way. So it's a quick way to kill your friends is to call down a turret in the wrong place. So that's a lot of fun. One negative thing about it that some people might hear about is that the game does utilize microtransactions, but all of the in-game currency can be acquired through normal play. You could also choose to purchase and spend money on acquiring this currency faster. However, from my experience, you acquire in-game currency at a pretty frequent rate. Basically, the more you do in a mission, the more likely you are to have a good chunk of money. Missions are timed. Typically, you're given about 40 minutes. Some missions range, some are shorter, and you're typically tasked with accomplishing one major objective. So for example, you have 40 minutes to maybe get the codes for an ICBM and then go activate the ICBM, which are in two separate parts of the map. However, as you wander the map, you might encounter side missions. So maybe you encounter a pirate radio station that you have to shut down. Maybe you encounter some replicator factories that are creating bots that you have to shut down. So it's different things like that. And as you explore, you're more likely to gain things like samples, which are a type of currency, metals, another type of currency, or super credits, which is a third type of currency. And a lot of these currencies can be used to purchase upgrades to your ship or upgrades to what are called your stratagems, which are things that you call down, or upgrades to your weapons. Helldivers 2 is a lot of fun. I've been having a lot of fun with it, and I definitely recommend checking it out, especially if you are a big fan of democracy. Anyway, that's what I've been playing, Helldivers 2. Seth, What about you?
So recently we were joined by a couple of Ryans, and one of the Ryans was staying with me since he is from England. And we, while waiting for PAX, played a game called It Takes Two, which was developed by Hazelight, which are the same people who did A Way Out, and published by EA. I believe actually Hazelight is a studio that's owned by EA, so EA says it's an EA original. They're very much developers that like to have co-op split screen, and their games are a lot of fun. Zach and I actually played through 100% of A Way Out together, which was a lot of fun, which is a game about prison break, whereas in It Takes Two is a game where you play as a clay or wooden doll of a child whose parents are looking to get a divorce. It Takes Two it's a very depressing intro of this couple's relationship falling apart in front of their daughters, and then their daughter cursing them to be toys and them having to work together to get back to their daughter. So there's a lot of puzzles that require cooperation, because one of the cool things about it is during one particular level, one person is given a hammerhead that they use to swing on various different things, and the other person is given nails that they can throw, kind of like Yondu in Guardians of the Galaxy, and they can whistle to bring the nails back. However, you can whistle to bring them back at any point in time, including while your friend is trying to use them as something to swing on, which is very funny. I may have messed with Ryan a couple of times while doing that, but you fight vacuums in the game, or toolboxes, and various different personified items in your shed. And overall, it's a great, fun time to pass with one other friend. Fortunately, I had a friend who was with me at the time, and we played it. It was a lot of fun.
Well, we're going to get into our PAX episode, our Post-PAX Pod, and I think we both had a great time.
So this is my 6th PAX in the row, missing, of course, the PAX that was canceled. I couldn't attend that because nobody attended that. But I feel like it's coming back. You could have taken away a couple of things by going to PAX. There was a lot of open space, implying that there were less booths this year. However, I think they did the open space a little bit better than what they did in previous years, where it was leave a giant open space in the middle. They kind of staggered booths throughout, so you didn't have this giant open space in the middle. You just had wider aisles, which was nice. I think they made booths a little smaller. I think there is a couple of issues. I don't think it's all hearts and roses and all that jazz. I think there was a couple of issues that I had with the convention as a whole, and I think part of it can be blamed on GDC being in the same weekend, which tends to draw a lot of developers to. I think that there were some developers or publishing houses that would have been at PAX, such as like Devolver, who opted to go to GDC instead. The Witcher people were there, but only for a panel, and apparently they flew in from GDC. So you can see how already that people were kind of like split, and it's not like GDC is down the street. One takes place on the West Coast and one takes place on the East Coast. So they are like the farthest from each other. So that was one of my main issues. I don't think it's necessarily PAX's fault, beyond that it's their fault that they are the ones that planned the schedule. So ReedPop really should have considered that, but apparently somebody leaked PAX dates till 2028, and so far they've been mostly right, including the one next year in 2025, which will happen in May, which will be the latest PAX that it will ever be. Zach and I were already talking about probably going earlier and going on like either a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Friday, Saturday, or something like that, instead of Saturday, Sunday, which is what we usually do, mostly because it happens later in the month and Zach can't go on Friday.
We are also talking about skipping Sunday because Mother's Day.
Now, some other the issues that I had with PAX. I think that there was some questionable vendors there. I understand the expo floor is primarily an advertising space. However, there was Dunkin' Donuts and Mountain Dew, who had some very large spaces. And I'm a guy who likes his Dunkin' Donuts, but they did not have any games that they were showing. And then they also had a very large booth dedicated to Saudi Arabia.
Was it Quida or Ida?
Quidia, which I don't know what they were selling. They didn't have any games that they were selling.
I thought they were selling Stargazer gates because they just had big circles.
We didn't really go over to that booth, but anyway, I understand that Read Expo is a for-profit business, so they need to make sure that they fill booths. But regardless, PAX needs to get back with the Indie Mega Booth. They had like a falling out or something with the Indie Mega Booth, and it wasn't here this year, and I don't know if it was there last year, but that was always a great place to really play a lot of games at once. And like they have like a PAX Rising showcase, but the Indie Mega Booth, you would swap out like you would literally only have a game there on Friday, and then they would switch it out. So then you would have 4 different games on a weekend, and it would be like 6 or 8 TVs with like each one having a different game and a schedule of what games were going to be there on what days. Loved that. It was a really great way to see a bunch, and it really made you like want to come back to the expo floor and see what new other games were there. I saw like Emily Away for the first time when they were doing
I remember they
sequels.
did
Yeah.
one of the sequels. Yeah, that was
cool.
But
it was the Indie Mega Booth that did it. And I don't know why PAX got into a fight with the Indie Mega Booth. They have their PAX Rising showcase, which is a great place to see other small games or small developers. However, they are the same small developers every day, which is fine, but I like variety when I'm going. So anyway, Zach, do you have any thoughts what PAX could have done better or what you liked this year versus previous years?
So I thought one thing that I was, when the expo map first came out for PAX and even the list first came out for PAX, I was like, oh, this is cool. It looks like it's going to be a bigger PAX in terms of vendors, because the past few years that Seth and I have gone, not necessarily PAX's fault, because obviously there was a global pandemic that was going on and arguably still impacting people, but it shrank, obviously, from 2020, the very beginning of 2020, to when PAX came back in 2022, entirely different PAXs, and the sizes were very different. And arguably, even 2020 was probably a bit smaller than 2019. I didn't go to 2019, but I heard that because 2020 you had Sony pulling out and other companies pulling out because of early, fears of COVID. However, when they announced this year, I was excited. I saw all this huge list. I saw the map. It looked really big. But actually being there, it felt like everything was just spread out a little bit more so that you had these wide open gaps between booths. And it kind of, I think, gave the illusion that PAX was larger when it was just kind of spread out more, right?
I noticed that too when going to like the bathroom. Usually that hallway between the bathroom or to the stairs is really like legally the width it should be, because there's like double or triple stack of vendors. And this year, especially the hallway to the right as you come down into the expo hall was massive, and they kind of like hid that fact away by having a wall, right, like a curtain wall going across to kind of make it the experience feel more crammed. And people are naturally not going to walk over there unless they have to go to the bathroom or go upstairs or do something like transit through it. So to PAX's credit, I think they were a bit more creative this year in how they put empty space out there. I think they hid it better, but to your point, there was still empty space.
I think that's just a downside, and that's also probably just a reality that we'll see going forward. In many regards, we're in actually, and this is kind of a topic I don't think we've talked about, we're in kind of a new era when it comes to game showcasing. E3 is gone, and a lot of times big companies like Sony, Nintendo, and Xbox, the big three, they're more dedicated on doing outputs of personal like videos. So Nintendo does the directs, Sony does its state of play, Xbox does whenever they feel like live streaming. I don't know. But
because they're all giant companies in their own right. And if they want to have their own convention, they can.
They are. But the reason that those three things started, Nintendo Direct, state of play, and whatever Xbox does, is because of COVID, because they couldn't do E3. And then those companies realized, well, hey, this is way easier because A, we don't have to compete with other companies. B, we don't have to like get a time slot where one of our reps has to be there. And we don't have to schmooze people, and like they don't have to worry about running the risk of having a debacle. You will never have PlayStation 3 will retail for $599 or like when Sega came up after they announced the price of the PS1 and they just like announced it $100 less for the Saturn sort of deal. You're not going to have that type of thing anymore where you have this one-upmanship, because everything is very well controlled. Everything's well edited now. now. That's fine. I think that's perfect. But what you're going to see is there's no reason for these companies to come to something like PAX. Sony doesn't need to be at PAX. They do State of Play. Nintendo really doesn't need to be at PAX. And in fairness, they weren't. Pokemon was there, but Pokemon is different than Nintendo. So there's no reason for these companies to be at PAX, and that is going to be a pullout, right? Like in 2020, when Seth and I when I first went to PAX, Nintendo was there. They had a booth because Animal Crossing just came out, and that was a huge pull. But they don't need to do stuff like that anymore because the directs basically do that for them. I think that's just something that we're coming to an era where I think PAX is fundamentally changed, and I don't think PAX will ever be the same as it was before the pandemic. I think it will likely evolve, obviously, but I think it's still in the stepping stones of that evolution.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things that are at play too, especially with how ReedPop is going to be managing it. I think that if ReedPop looks towards the future of PAX and brings down cost of booths and encourages and subsidize independent developers, you can see smaller and smaller developers come and show off. I think there's always going to be small independent developers out there that want to show off their game. And if you entice them to come, then so be it. That's how you can fill your booths, as it were. And I also think that there's an aspect of the show that I think is growing that we haven't talked about, and that's the tabletop side of the house. PAX runs a dedicated tabletop show in December called PAX Unplugged, which my wife and I are thinking about probably attending again this year. We attended the first PAX Unplugged, and we may be going again this year. That's down in Philadelphia. That's a 100% only board game show, and I think there was a big showing of board games and tabletop RPGs at PAX this year, and I think that it's taking more and more space, which is that's not a bad thing, it's just a thing, because board games, unlike video games, board games aren't really managed. So I mean, I guess there are some big board game companies out there like Parker Brothers and Hasbro and all those guys. I think that they're the same. I think Hasbro owns Parker Brothers, but regardless, there's a couple of big toy companies that make board games, and there is like Fantasy Flight, but the companies that make board games are not consolidated to Microsoft, Sony. Like those guys make video games. They're big into developing. They do the AAA games. There's billions of dollars. Board games are much more niche than that, but there's still a big appetite for board games and tabletop games. They'll always need a type of show as long as we continue to play them. And I think people will always play board games. We've been playing board games since Go. Don't think we're going to stop playing board games anytime soon. I think we're going to constantly iterate on that. And I think PAX itself needs to understand like board games and small indie developers are its path forward and not necessarily rely on large. The issue is that large companies pay the bills. The expo floor is the advertisement space. I think that PAX has to think about what is it there for? Is it there for the panels? Is it there for the expo floor? Is it there for the parties? Is it there for the, like the free play rooms and all that stuff? It all depends. I think it's something that's we're going to see pan out, and Zach and I will be here to report on it as we go through it, because we'll be attending next year's PAX, and we'll attend the PAXs as long as they continue to have them. But regardless, let's talk about actually going. So the night before PAX on the Friday, Zach and I and the Ryans, we made our way to Boston, Massachusetts, and we grabbed some dinner at a restaurant called Double Chin, which is in Chinatown. And if you are ever up in Boston, 100% recommend Double Chin. It's like an Instagram fusion. It's an experience. That's what it is. It's in the heart of Chinatown in Boston. 100% recommend it. Don't go there thinking you're going to get Chinese food, though. Then we went to a speakeasy called Offsuit, which it's a play on the cards in regards to the suit of a playing card, which was a little speakeasy that we located in the back of the parking lot. Could not tell you where it is. I know it's close to Chinatown. We walked from there, but we went down some alleyways, and then we called the number and got led into the back of a restaurant, which I couldn't tell you what the restaurant was, but you can Google it and it'll tell you where Offsuit is. And then we went and did an escape room. We did a fun escape room done over at Trapology, and it was an interesting experience. It involved us escaping from a coffee shop and more. Then we went to a barcade called Versus, and we were dumb because it was a Friday night and a PAX weekend. So we walked into a full place where we could not get service, and we had 1 beers, and then we immediately left to go pass out to go ready for PAX. Now, mind you, so PAX is a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday convention, and Zach and I and the Ryans, we went on Saturday and Sunday. We made it to PAX at around 9:45 in the morning on Saturday, and that was after getting breakfast at Flower in the Seaport, which is also where PAX is located. And it was probably, I think, the earliest time I've ever been to PAX. And from there, we hit the expo floor, and we just wandered around to get a feel for the whole floor and figure out what we were doing. Early on, we did play a game that was very similar to Castle Crashers, a beat 'em up that was called Mighty Knight Legacy, which was a lot of fun. I really liked the game because it had, when you picking your character, there was 4 controllers but only 1 selector, so you could change your friend's character that they were going to play at the last second. A lot of fun. Kind of turns that whole trying to get a special character on its head, and it's really you're trying to mess with your friends. Atari and Apogee both had booths there, and I think, to be honest, Atari and Apogee had probably some of the best PAX booths. Truly, like fun. The purpose of PAX, good old Atari and Apogee. They had some really cool games that are coming out that they've been working on, such as for Atari, the Llama Soft, the Jeff Minter story, which is a bunch of old Atari games that Jeff Minter worked on, and then Lunar Lander Beyond from Atari, which is a reimagining of the classic Lunar Lander game, which I was always very bad at. One of the Atari reps was laughing at me because I was saying like, oh, I just slammed it to the moon. There was also Wizardorium and Phantom Fury from Apogee and 3D Realms. Wizardorium was a hexen type of boomer shooter, which is always a lot of fun. Atari has a Wizardry remaster that really had me excited because it's a complete remaster of the Wizardry game with a tiny little screen in the bottom corner that shows you where you would be in the real Wizardry game. So it like makes Wizardry approachable and playable and fun for the modern era, while still showing you like what people who would be playing Wizardry when it came out originally back in the 80s, what they were playing. Now, we also found our way over to the Retrotainment and 8-Bit Legit booth, where we did end up chatting with our buddy Tim from 8-Bit Legit. He talked to us a bit about what they've been working on, and we're probably going to have Tim come on to the show eventually. We're apparently at the top of his inbox, but he keeps deleting it, and we just keep coming back.
That's how the Classic Gaming Brothers work.
The game that 8-Bit Legit is currently working on is the Colossal Adventure, which is a Game Boy homebrew, which should be out soon, possibly by this time this episode airs. It was 3 weeks from PAX. So then another booth that we walked by and took a look into was the New Blood booth, who were showing off their new FPS Fallen Aces game. Fallen Aces looks really good. It has kind of a Doom-esque look to it while also being set in a noir type setting. Speaking of noir, after that, we walked around a bit more and got over to the PAX Rising section. Here we were able to try out and look at a few upcoming indie games. One of those games was called Nirvana Noir and is being developed by Feral Cat Den. The developers weren't around at the time we were checking the game, but we did speak to a volunteer who pitched the game to us.
Nirvana Noir is developed by Feral Cat Den, a small indie studio based in Brooklyn. If you know about the noir film genre, it takes a lot of influence from that. But the base of it is it's a narrative puzzle game where you play as a detective who's investigating 2 parallel timelines. One, which is a lot more colorful, which is this first scene. Second scene is the much darker black and white timeline. So the art team has done a lot of cool stuff there.
Yeah, very cool.
Awesome.
Now, just one more question. Is this the first game from this team, or?
No. So Nirvana Noir is the follow-up to their first game, Genesis Noir, which is available on Steam. Nirvana Noir is an upcoming game that's going to have a Kickstarter page real soon.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you, volunteer. Hopefully you're listening to our episodes. If you are Mr. Volunteer who was volunteering for Nirvana Noir, if you're listening to this episode, write in. Let us know who you are, and we'll thank you properly. From there, we walked over and played a bit of Airborne Empire by Wandering Band LLC, which is an RTS city builder that is set on an airship. The game, to me, felt a lot like if you took Frostpunk and put it on an airship. There's a lot of balancing of various different type of metrics where you have to keep your lift afloat. You have to make sure you have enough resources. You have to farm resources. You have to move your airship. You can't run out of fuel and all that sorts of stuff. So it's very much a balancing kind of city builder type game. I really liked it. I'm a big fan of flying ships. The person who was showing off the game was also not one of the developers, but he did give us the developer's contact information. So maybe you will hear this developer on a future Indie Dev Lounge episode.
Yeah. Now, another game that we tried out in the PAX Rising session was Robots at Midnight by Finish Line Games. This was a cool looking action game with a bit of a Zelda / Studio Ghibli vibe. You play as a girl who has to fight off robots that have kind of this lanky design to them. And we did get to talk to one of the devs, and here's what they had to say.
So we are Finish Line Games. Our game is Robots at Midnight. We're stationed out of Toronto, Canada, for the most part. We're a small 13-team group. However, the game that we have brought to PAX this year is the first game we've ever brought to PAX, and this is the first time we've ever showing it, so
Nice.
It's really exciting. It's an action RPG that takes place on the planet Y'all, a planet that was designed by humans yet created by robots. In the past 20 years, something happened that turned all the robots a little hostile towards humans. Not all the robots, but a majority of them. So you play as Zoe, our titular character, who has woken up after 20 years to find this planet void of any other humans. And in her searchings, she's going to find her father and the caretaker of Yob to try and figure out what's happened, but mainly to get off the planet and survive. Not to say that this is a survival game in any way, but it is a fight to survive. There's a bit of a challenge there. However, we wanted to massage that challenge by adding in some interesting visuals with our kind of unique art style that draws on a lot of old 80s anime and Studio Ghibli stuff. As well as working our fast-paced combat into some more goofy actions. So a lot of our enemies are very wiggly and wobbly.
I can see that now from the
so this is
robot fighting.
One of our robot types. We have 3 of them in the game, 2 of them in this demo. That kind of just have a bit unique actions, kind of goofy with our animation style. And then we can also ragdoll them and kind of push them around after we beat them, or send them flying with some of our attacks.
Very cool. Now, you said this is your first time at PAX. Is this your guys' first game, or?
No, so we've had a couple games beforehand. Scully and Maze are the 2 most recent ones. However, there was also Cell Damage back in the 2000s, I believe. I've only been with the team for about a year. I'm their narrative designer.
Nice.
But yeah, the company's been around for about 15 years now.
Very cool. And so what's the expected release date for Robots at Midnight, and what do you guys expect to sell for, that sort of deal?
To sell for, we don't have a final price point yet. We're hoping for 20 plus hours of gameplay.
Nice.
So whatever the market then works out that to be at the time. And we're hoping to release this year for Xbox and Steam.
Now, we wandered a bit more, and we decided to go grab some lunch at the Smoke Shop Barbecue in the Seaport District. We all got the exact same meal, which was a burnt end sandwich. So we finished our lunch and we got back to PAX. We hit the floor again. As we were wandering around, we walked past Berzerk Studio's booth, which was showing off Infernax, a retro-style Metrovania, and the dev was kind enough to give us a quick overview of it.
This is Infernax. We are Berzerk Studio. We are from Quebec City, so pardon my broken English.
Oh, no worries.
Infernax is a Zeldavania. It's our homage to Zelda 2 and Castlevania 2. We're trying to make them the best version that they can be. It's also the game that when you were young and on the playground and everybody was like, yo dude, I rented the most brutal and metal game ever, this is this game.
Very cool.
Very gory, very violent, and
Now, is this your guys' first game, or how many games have you put out?
No, the studio has been around for over 10 years now.
Okay.
It's our 15th anniversary, actually.
Oh, awesome.
Yes, and no, this is our second console game. Before that, we were a Flash studio.
Oh, very cool.
Yes, so this originally was a Flash game that kind of was shelved and put back together. It took like 11 years from the moment we had the idea for this game and the moment it was out.
Yeah.
So, and we are showcasing here today our couch co-op of it that we released last year, because we released the game single player 2 years ago.
Okay.
And we added couch co-op last year as a free update that we call Do or Die.
Very cool. Now, where can people find the game if they're looking for it?
Steam, Switch, PlayStation, Xbox. It's pretty much everywhere. It's even on Netflix for the cloud games.
Oh, cool. That's very cool.
Launched last week.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So then we decided to go shopping. Primarily I decided to go shopping, as Seth's not really a physical game collector. We went by a couple of the booths that were selling retro games. I ended up picking up Tiles of Fate and Miss Pac-Man, both for the NES, and both were unlicensed releases. Tiles of Fate is a game developed by Taiwanese developer C&E and published by American Video Entertainment, and Miss Pac-Man was released by Tengen. We checked out some other vendors, such as some people selling some really cool looking expensive dice. We walked by the nice tables at Wormwood, and then we found ourselves over at Sanctuary Shattered Sun, an RTS being produced by Enhearten Media. We talked to Dimitri from Enhearten, who told us all about this game.
So this is Dimitri, I'm from Enhearten Media, and we're working on a new RTS game called Sanctuary Shattered Sun.
Very cool. Can you give us like a good quick spiel, like what exactly sell it to me.
Yeah, sure. Sanctuary Shattered Sun, if you're ever familiar with a game called Supreme Commander, this is like that a little bit, right? It's thousands of units on the field, and what's unique about it is you're playing not just on the map, but you can destroy the map. And that's not just a small thing. You can blow holes in the whole thing.
Very cool.
This thing is set on a Dyson sphere. It's a hollow structure around the sun.
Okay.
That means when everybody falls down into the sun, that's exactly what happens. You seeing that right there?
I see that,
Yeah, the weather is also fully artificial, so that means if you rupture coolant pipes and things, the ships actually get stuck in the ice and tanks can drive over that because you've frozen the seas.
Oh, that's very cool.
And when it all melts, the tanks drown.
Nice. Very cool. Now, is this your guys' first game, or?
We made the company to make this game. How it started is we were talking to the original creator of Supreme Commander, Chris Taylor.
Yeah.
He also made Total Annihilation and stuff. He's like a legend in the RTS community.
Yeah.
And we talked how we would make an RTS today. Now, after that, we realized that not only was it possible, but that we were the ones to do it.
Very cool.
3 years later, we're here at PAX, and we're actually having dinner with Chris Taylor next week. He's already knows about the game. He's so excited, just like everyone else is.
That's very awesome. I'm excited to see more. I'm a huge RTS fan, so...
Came to the right place.
We came to the right place, yeah.
Do you have a time when you're going to be releasing, or what's expected?
Yeah, we've been working on this game for about 3 years, and we're looking for about 1 or 2 years to early access, right? But if you want to have a go at it sooner, you can either check us out at PAX, right? Or there'll be a Kickstarter campaign later this year. So in a couple of months from now, that's why if you want to make this game be the best it can be, make it a reality, should back us right now.
Now, Seth primarily was the one who played it. I didn't get really a chance, but I watched it. I liked the design, and one thing that I thought was cool was it's basically Supreme Commander on a Dyson sphere, so that when you blow up parts of the Dyson sphere, your enemies will fall into the sun. And I thought that was funny. So, Seth, do you want to give your thoughts on Sanctuary Shattered Sun?
Yeah, I think it's a very ambitious RTS game. The designer of Supreme Commander, Chris Taylor, actually said that this game could be the spiritual successor, and the devs were actually getting like lunch or drinks with Chris. I would call it a more like not a grand strategy, but like a grand RTS where there's just a lot going on. Very different than controlling like a single orc to attack another orc.
Yeah, for sure.
It's definitely like Supreme Commander style in regards to like so many different things to control. You could zoom out real far, you can zoom in real close. There's mining, there's building turrets. They definitely have some work ahead of themselves. They've got a Kickstarter, but if you're interested in it, I would definitely recommend looking up Sanctuary Shattered Sun and following whatever Twitter or whatever social media that they have to be able to see when they release the Kickstarter.
And after that, the Ryans decided to depart us for a bit. They went to a panel on Cyberpunk 2077, and the brothers, me and Seth, decided that we were going to go nap at the back of that panel after we wandered around the expo floor for a bit longer and realized we were exhausted. So we went to the Cyberpunk panel a bit late, and we took a little nappy poo.
We got 100% more nap and 100% less t-shirts and pins.
And after that, we decided we were going to finally head out. It was getting kind of, I don't want to say it was getting late. It was probably like 4:30, maybe 5-ish, but we'd been there all day. So we all decided to leave. There was also a torrential downpour happening outside, so we had to wait a bit for a lift, and then we ended up getting dinner at Maria's Taqueria, and which was down the street from the hotel. And that was a nice little inexpensive taqueria. If you're looking for some good burritos or tacos or enchiladas down by the theater district. And after that, we went to the French Quarter, which was a restaurant / cocktail bar, and we enjoyed some beverages, which was a good evening.
Including one Ryan that had a fiery drink.
Yeah, one of the Ryans had a drink that caught on fire intentionally.
It would be great if the Ryans were twins, but they're not. They're not related.
They're not related. I wouldn't be impressed by a mother who chose the same name for two of her sons, though.
The next morning, we got a bit of a later start, snagged some breakfast at Tate, which was right over by South Station. And once we got to PAX, we hit the floor, wander around a bit to see any games that we missed, and try to play games. Sunday and Thursdays tend to be a lot slower days on the expo floor, so you can usually get to play games. We walked past the games from Poland booth, and were drawn in to play a game called Be My Horde by Polished Games, which the head of PR and marketing, Lucas, pitched to us.
My name is Łukasz Kostka. I'm the head of PR and marketing at Polished Games, and we are the developers of the game called Be My Horde.
Excellent. Do you mind giving a quick, what is it about? What can people expect?
I mean, it's quite similar to Vampire Survivors, but with a twist in our game. Because here you do not fight enemies directly. You, as a Moriana, as our sexy necromancer, the protagonist of the game, your minions are doing it for you. And because you're a necromancer, you can resurrect each fallen enemy, gradually expanding your army, your horde of undead warriors. So to unleash chaos upon forces of good, because you're kind of evil in this scenario.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the art style. Is it all hand-drawn art style, stuff like that?
It was prepared all in Photoshop by our graphic designer Alicia Frelich. She's also responsible for key art and all the graphics in it, together with our second graphic designer, Cordian.
Very cool. When can people expect to see it on Steam?
I mean, the demo is already available on Steam for everybody to try it out. The game we're going to release it in early access mid this year. So I'm talking about June, July, August. We're still not so sure. The full game will come out, to be honest, shortly after that. We don't want to go with the forever early access phase with 3 years, something like that. Yeah. No. I'm talking about a few months. And with the full release, we're also going to launch it on consoles like Nintendo Switch, Xbox, and PlayStation.
It's a pretty neat game. It's almost like a reverse version of Vampire Survivors, where you're controlling minions and you can raise the dead. One of the Ryans lasted about 11 minutes before his character was overrun by knights, which I think he was 15 seconds short of the convention longest time.
Yeah, I forget what the convention record was. It was like 11 something.
11:30 or something.
Yeah, 11:30, and then they said that their in-studio record was like 12:30 or something. And they said that if Ryan went over that, he would be quote-unquote inhuman.
We also stopped by a booth for a game called Juice by Max at Colorfiction. The game is being developed just by Max and drawn by Max in a hand-drawn art style. And it's a bloody, violent game where you control a monster devouring people. And here's Max to pitch it.
Hi, so I'm Max. I go by Colorfiction. And this is Juice, and it's a first-person melee game where you play as a monster destroying a city, and also as a human trying to survive. So it's this back-and-forth dual narrative. Here on PAX, I'm showing like a brief snippet of the story demo, and most importantly, the arcade mode, which basically you want to eat 300 humans in the least time possible for a chance to win 2 hats. The record so far was 29 seconds, which is insane.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But yeah, I just announced it on Steam on Tuesday. so you can wishlist it, and I might drop like a demo or early access by June.
Awesome.
I'm a solo dev, so I've been working on this part-time.
Oh, wow, yeah.
It's all hand-drawn, and hopefully I can go at it full-time.
Nice. So is this your first game?
No, it's actually my 10th game.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But it's a very different. All my other games are like chill walking simulators, and they're actually shareware, so you can like download them and play them for free.
Very cool.
And yeah, last year there was like a big project I was working on that got canceled.
Okay.
So I put all my frustrations in making the rawest game I could think of.
Nice. Very cool.
And this is what happened.
What would you say some of your influences for this game?
Well, honestly, like I love like the cartoons growing up, like the flipbook style animations.
Yeah.
Anything from Disney to like Ren and Stimpy and Beavis and Butthead.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to make this game that feels kind of like you're watching that Saturday night cartoons, but like at midnight.
Oh yeah.
You know
yeah,
where you're just like terrorizing a city and
like Adult Swim is on.
Yeah, Adult Swim. Yeah.
The brothers tried their hand at the speedrun challenge to win the hat, and Zach, I don't know how poorly you did. I was on track to beat the top score, and then there was like 2 or 3 people that I had to kill to be able to get to the 300 points or whatever, and I couldn't find them, and that's when I lost. After this, we doubled back to the PAX Rising showcase and took a look at a game called Unwound, where Valentina from the Wirescribe Corp pitched the game to us, and here she is.
I'm Valentina. I'm working on this game called Unwound. We're a super small studio in New York City, about 4 people, super part-time. The game is a narrative adventure exploration game. It's you basically play as a ball of yarn. You're in this weird Alice in Wonderland type of situation. And the big premise of the game is that it's called Unwound, but you actually end up growing through the game, and you kind of build yourself up from nothing. You get limbs, arms and legs and stuff like that. They change how you move around.
Very cool. Is this your guys' first game?
Second game.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
What's the ETA for it? When can people expect to see it on Steam, etc.?
We have a demo up on Steam every once in a while for events mostly, such as these, and then but we're still actually quite a long way away from release. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, it looks great, so thank you very much for the time.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Behind the Unwound booth was My Familiar, where we were greeted by Preston from Chintzy Ink. Ink spelled I-N-K, which I thought was clever. He gave us a keychain of a duck dog, and here's how Preston pitched the game to us.
My name is Preston McCampbell. I'm the executive producer of My Familiar, and My Familiar is a turn-based buddy cop isekai RPG. And it basically translates to, it's like a Super Mario RPG style game with a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle style 80s, 90s comedy grunge world wrapped around it.
Yeah. Very cool. Is this your guys' first game?
This is my first game, but we have a core dev team of about 7 members who have worked on other RPGs like Shadows of Adam.
Yeah.
They have a booth over here too that have another 2 RPGs, so we're working on 3 RPGs simultaneously.
Very cool. I like the 16-bit art style and stuff like that. What would you say some of your inspirations are?
Okay, well, so most of them, the typical ones, like the RPGs, the golden era from the Super Nintendo to PlayStation 1 era, but also things that were just more in that era. So, like the movies at the time, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Jim Henson, you know, things are like, is it friendly? Is it not? You know, you have to kind of investigate and see how you feel about it. So it's just a different, more of a grungy 90s kind of art style.
Very cool. And when can people expect to see it on Steam and whatnot?
The full release is aiming for Q4 2025. Okay. And you can get the demo right now, which is about an hour and a half, 2.5 hours how you play. It's on Steam right now, and we're not going to take it down. We're constantly adding updates to it every few months, you know.
Then we walked through some other booths, a couple that we had already seen, kind of just doing a last little look. And we also saw some games that we didn't see the first day, not necessarily that were like new. We just missed them. One of these games was Gun Runner, Gunn Runner, a game that had similar mechanics to Mega Man in the sense that it's a platformer where you shoot things, though it was a bit more puzzle focused. And another game was being developed by the same team called Too Many Captains, and this was a spaceship simulator that had kind of a cartoon aesthetic. And the company working on these games is Pixelcast. Another game we gave a try was Lisfranga. Lisfranga was was a game similar to Hades. However, the trick with Lisfranca, and I'm going to try to describe this as best as I can, is that every time you fight monsters, your character has a short amount of time. When that time elapses, you die. However, after you die, your past will repeat the actions you did, which gives your future self the ability to perform actions you didn't do in the past. So, for example, let's say there are 10 enemies, your past self kills 3 of them, you die, then your future self can kill the next maybe 3, and you die again, and then your future self again will kill the rest. So that's kind of the best way I can describe it. It's kind of hard to describe without playing the game, but I thought it was kind of neat. I know one of the Ryans we were with wasn't that impressed by it, but I liked it. It's a game that I think I will pick up or check out later. And then we started to work our way out. Seth stopped by the Larian booth on Sunday because the line had finally gotten incredibly small.
Yes, and there's no merchandise left. No, there was a decent amount of merchandise left. I ended up grabbing some pins that, I'm going to be honest with you, no idea where they are. I think they're with my PAX stuff still.
Well, hopefully they're not with your notebook.
I hope they are not with my notebook. That'd be a sad day. Just for any of our listeners, I bought a nice yellow notebook so that I wouldn't lose it. And so I could, like a nice little moleskin. And I was writing notes about the show. I wrote 4 to 5 pages of notes on Saturday. And by Sunday, I didn't know where it was. I thought I packed it with my stuff. I got home. It was gone. Rip to my my yellow moleskin notebook. I only knew you once.
We then kind of walked through a couple of last booths that we didn't really spend a lot of time with earlier. There were some developers that were kind of clustered together. They had a whole bunch of games lined up on laptops that you could kind of just sit down and try. But by that time, I was getting complainy. Because I was tired. So I was getting grouchy.
Oh, he's horrible when he's tired.
I am horrible when I'm tired. I take after my brother. The 2 of the Ryans had panels to go to, though one of them found out that the panel that he wanted to go to was in the past. So we parted ways and we bid each other goodbye. And that, my friends, was PAX 2024.
We all took trains, planes, and automobiles home.
That's right, we did. In terms of final thoughts, I think we expressed a lot of our final thoughts in our opening thoughts. But overall, I had a good time with Seth. I always have fun hanging out with Seth, even if I get a little grouchy when I'm tired.
I'm really excited. I think we had a really good group. I miss out that we didn't have our third Ryan with us, but I think the 2 Ryans were a lot of fun to go with. One of the Ryans was his first PAX, and also was good to spend some time with him. And we were cheap, so we all stayed in one hotel room with 2 beds, and we didn't kill each other. So I think that's saying something.
Man, I definitely think that's why I was so tired, though, because when I got home on Sunday, I went to bed and I woke up at 2 p.m.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to PAX next year. Once again, it's in May, but I think we're probably going to stay in the same hotel. The hotel was really great. It was centrally located, and we could walk everywhere, and we ended up saving money on the Uber trip, and we would have saved more money on our Ubers and Lyft trips if it didn't rain. Cats and dogs. That's going to be our PAX experience, and now we're going to get on to our Retro Rewind. Also, if anyone from PAX or ReadPop is listening, notice that we did 2 episodes on PAX and no media badge. For my Retro Rewind, Zach had me play Captain Commando. In this game, would have been more enjoyable if my brother played it with me, but I had to play it by myself. Captain Commando is a SNES 2-player co-op beat-em-up. It was originally released in arcades in 1991 for both the Japanese and American markets, and then it was brought to home consoles for the SNES in 1995 for both the Japanese and American markets, and then in Japan it was released to the PlayStation in 1998. It is a Capcom beat-em-up game, very similar to Final Fight, which is also a Capcom game, but if Final Fight was just weird. It's set in a futuristic version of Metro City, which is where Final Fight is set in, and is actually loosely tied to the Final Fight games. There's like cameos and references to Final Fight, and the world is 2026, which is not too far off from today, but in that world, it's a futuristic world where crime is rampant, which who knows? we're only 2 more years, and perhaps crime will be rampant. However, Captain Commando and his commando companions need to band up and fight all the crime. You can play as Captain Commando, who is the leader of the commando companions, who's strong and has energy gloves that shoots fire and electricity. There's also in his commando companions Mac the Knife, who is a mummy commando, who is an alien from outer space and uses subsonic knives to fight enemies. Then there's Jinzu the ninja, who's a highly trained ninja and fights with ninjutsu and a sword. And then finally my favorite, Babyhead, who is a super genius infant who fights using a robot. He's decked out in all sorts of weapons, including missiles that shoot from his knees when he does his special attack, which is great. It's a really great play, especially if you have a friend and are looking for a solid beat-em-up game and don't want to play Turtles Through Time again. You can check out Captain Commando. It's kind of a game that I didn't really think about until Zach told me to play it. Next week, Zach, you can play Terminator 2 Judgment Day for the SNES.
Okay. Now, Seth had me play In the Hunt for the PS1. Developed by Irem back in 1993, originally for the arcade and then ported to the PS1. Kind of like Captain Commando ported to the PS1. In the Hunt is a scrolling shooter where you play as a submarine and you have to stop bad guys from destroying the world. The game actually has a bad rep, but to be honest, I'm not really sure why. It's not that bad of a scrolling shooter. It's generic. That's probably the biggest reason. And from what I could tell from the reviews, everyone else thought it was generic.
Do you know how they could have made it less generic?
By not making a scrolling shooter?
By putting a baby with a robot in it.
Or by doing full motion video and making it a silent steal. In the Hunt, you play as a submarine instead of a spaceship, which most scrolling shooters have you playing as a spaceship. The action is pretty hectic, and the graphics are actually kind of nice. They reminded me a lot of Metal Slug in that there was, for lack of a better way to describe them, kind of cartoony realism to them. I don't know what I mean by that, except for the explosions look very detailed, but everything has kind of a cartoon vibe to it. I will say that the music in the Hunt is incredibly weird. It is like happy, but not like, I don't know how to describe it. Like you're blowing up all this stuff and just this like chill vibe, happy music is playing in the background. It's an odd game. I don't necessarily think it deserves the bad rep that it has from some reviews. I saw that like Next Gen gave it 1 star out of 10, but like other reviewers at the time gave it like a 60%, 70% stuff. So I think it overall holds up if you like shooters, but if you're looking for a shooter, there's probably better ones to play even on the PS1. Next week though, Seth, you can play X-Men Mutant Apocalypse for the Super Nintendo.
Perfect. Well, thanks everybody for joining us in our Post-PAX Pod episode. We always appreciate you listening to us, and we hope that you appreciated our content. Anyway, if you want to listen to more episodes, you can always find us wherever you listen to podcasts. We are now on also YouTube, so if you want to subscribe there, you can head over to YouTube and join one of our insert number of subscribers here. I think it's in the 50s right now, which is incredible, but if you want to make that number larger so that I'm always wrong in this episode, you should do so. Or you can make it smaller, I guess. You can unsubscribe, then I'll still be wrong. You can also follow us on social media on Twitch, Instagram, and Facebook. We're at Classic Gaming Brothers on those platforms, and also on Twitter and Blue Sky, we are CG Brothers Pod. And finally, we always just ask if you can refer us to 3 friends. That's all we ask. Just 3, no more, no less, just 3. Because if you like something, you should tell 3 people about it. And if you don't like it, you would tell more. So don't tell more, just tell 3. Anyway, Zach, am I missing anything?
Don't play games like my brother.
And don't play games like my brother.
I've been Zach.
And I've been Seth.
We've been the Classic Gaming Brothers.
That's right.
That's right. So I'm out here with Seth. Seth, tell me the best thing at PAX.
Going home.